Okay, well, welcome along to another Not Another Business podcast. Special welcome to my guest today, Dr. Bridget, or Dr. B to her friends. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. Great to catch up again. Yeah, really looking forward to it.
Yeah, we always have good conversations, so we'll have to mind our P's and Q's, me particularly more than you for today.
Yeah.
Because who knows?
Otherwise, I'll have to give you an injection otherwise.
Exactly. And you've got your stethoscope on today, just in case you need to resuscitate me halfway through.
Yeah, you know what it's like. So because I used to be a GP, so that's where the Dr. Bridgets come from. So it's cool.
Yeah, well, we'll delve into all that as the conversation flows. I'm keen to find out a little bit more. I always find out things that I never knew before, and I think really interesting for our audience as well, definitely. So I've said this on a few of these recordings so far, but just for reference, because we never know when people might watch this back, but we are in June 2020. We're just coming out of lockdown, slowly but surely, from COVID-19. So that might be in some of our conversation, but how have you approached lockdown, and what have you used the time for, Dr. B?
Yeah, I guess I've approached it positively. I wasn't very well at the beginning of it, so I don't know whether I had it or not. But once I'd got over that, I really just sort of took the opportunity to look at my business work, take an overview of the business, and just get my website sorted out so that the funnels were working better. Got in touch with old clients, carried on with new, existing clients, and it's been really busy. And I think because it's almost like, I don't know about you, Adam, but it's almost like a flick of a switch has happened for me. So I've had time, so I haven't been rushing around like networking and things. So I've had time to actually sit in the garden, listen to the birds, just generally be as well as working. And I think that's been huge for me. And I think, I'm not sure what you feel about all this vibrational stuff, but, I think that when you're in a good space, then stuff comes in. What do you want to call that? So that's what's been happening, really. And it's really busy, which is great, because it means I can help more people. So.
Well, exactly. And I think it'd be interesting, won't it, to see how we as a nation or even as a world look back on this time.
Yeah.
At the beginning of lockdown, when we didn't know how long it was going to last, everyone thought, oh my goodness, I'm going to be stuck at home with, not very many people for a long period of time.
Yeah.
Actually, I think people have generally been positive about it, that it's given them a chance to reflect, slow down a little bit, regroup.
And I think did a little video blog on my website the other day about how people's values have changed. And I think, whereas it was all about rushing around and success and, busyness, maybe now people are thinking, well, it's actually quite nice to just be myself, to be present, and get the same results in a different way, really. And it's quite interesting.
Let's hope those values are retained post-COVID, because I think they're very important ones, aren't they?
They are. I'm going to redo mine, I think, but because I think determinations, I think, is still at the top of my list of my business values. But looking after myself has certainly come into more of it now. You still want to have fun and still want to make a difference, but I think the looking after myself and the peacefulness around, just doing what I do, is really key to me. So
good. So you've had a good opportunity to reflect on that and underline and highlight it as a core value for what means happiness and success for you.
Absolutely. And I've been able to spend more time with the husband, with the dogs. Haven't seen the grandkids, but that's not far off, I don't think.
No, it'll all come back together again soon, won't it? And
Yeah.
again, hopefully for a long period, we'll all appreciate that stuff a lot more than we ever did. You only sometimes appreciate something when it's taken away, don't you?
Yeah, yeah, and I think we're so busy sometimes we don't realise there is another way to live,
No.
and I think it's been really useful. Obviously, there've been people that have not been well or even died, and that's a bit tragic.
Yes, lots of tragedy around it, and being thankful for what you've got. Gratitude, I know, is such an important part of a feeling of success,
Yeah,
but often is overlooked in the hubbub and speed and acceleration of normal day-to-day life. So some
absolutely.
really good lessons there for us all, definitely. So I obviously we've known each other for a little while now, and probably got to know each other a lot better over the last 12 months.
Yeah,
Had lots and lots of great conversations. But for the benefit of our listeners and watchers and viewers, tell us, if you would, a little bit about your story, Dr. Bridget. Well, in as much or as little detail as you like, bringing us right up to date.
yeah. I guess, as with all of us, our story begins when we're born, or possibly even before that.
Yeah.
So I was born into a a family, I guess, where my mum had been evacuated during the war and feels you just sort of get on with things. Sort of lots of love, but not necessarily lots of affection. But yeah, I sort of grew up with that, and potentially having a couple of things happen in my life, like um, my sister bit me when I was 7, and I made a bit of a fuss, and it all went wrong. So 50 years down the line, and you're standing up in a networking event, you can't actually say what you think.
Right.
And then I passed my 11 plus, and my sister didn't, and I was sort of told to, dumb down in some senses the um, any success that I might have, which
Yeah.
is so that had an effect. But eventually, I sort of became someone that was really interested in how things work. So I did a physiology degree
Mm-hmm.
and learned how the body works, and then added people in. So how do people work, and how do their bodies not work or do work? So I was a GP then for about 24 years. And when I started out, it was, we could spend a lot longer with patients. And we generally looked after people ourselves overnight and at weekends, and I really enjoyed it.
Mm-hmm.
And then the new contract came in where you didn't do the 24-hour cover anymore, but it's still a business, really. So a business in sort of running in terms of how many things you know about patients, how many procedures you've done.
Mm-hmm.
And most people don't know that, but I found that I wasn't really getting in touch with the things that people needed to have solved. Not just because of the time, but just because my knowledge wasn't there in terms of what I know now, in terms of how people behave and how people feel and their mental health.
Yes.
So I sort of felt I was just sort of scratching the surface, really, and that there must be some sort of missing link. So eventually I had some coaching when I was a medical director, and that changed my life. Just had a good look at what was good for me and what wasn't working for me, made some quite big changes eventually, and then decided to leave general practice. Again, I wasn't really having, it wasn't fun or making the difference. And so I left general practice and thought, what am I going to do? I thought, well, I'll either be able to sit down by the river drinking wine all day, which sounded tempting for a little while, or I can actually go out and do something I feel really passionate about, which is making a difference to people in a different way. So I took a coaching course, then discovered neuro-linguistic programming, and really the rest is history. I'm now a master trainer, passionate about what I do, running courses, helping people sort out the programming that they have in their heads, which causes them to be stuck. And just helping people, mainly in business, getting out of their own way. it's like, I think we've all done it, isn't it? Sometimes we think we're not good enough, or success is too hard, and we sit around and procrastinate and go in a bit of more of a downward spiral instead of an upward one. And that's what I help people do, really, either in training or in coaching. So I'm really happy, really.
Yeah, great. I mean, you've covered a lot in you've given us a good summary there. There's lots to pick through within all that. So the stepping out of the medical profession to give it that name and to go it alone, did that seem like a big decision at the time, or what steps did you take to make that happen?
Really, I just realized that I wasn't really happy doing what I was doing. I was in a salaried general practice, having gone out of the director sort of role. So I was sort of paid to be a GP.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not really particularly a rule follower. So there were some things that were happening that I wasn't 100% happy about.
Yeah.
I'd also met my second husband, who'd just sort of retired and moved here to be with me. And so I was doing a job, really, that I didn't really get much out of.
Yes.
And just wanted to stop it. So I just did my sums and took early retirement, pension wise, and did some locums for a bit, but also then thought about what I was going to do. And life's good. Really
Yeah,
good.
yeah. So it didn't feel like a huge cataclysmic change, but felt like the natural thing to do by the sounds of it.
Yeah, I just wasn't happy. And
Yeah.
following coaching and things, you realize that you're in charge of your life and you can do what you want. And that's the important thing, is being you, and I wasn't really being me. So it wasn't that big a jump. I mean, obviously from a finance point of view, you sort of think that through. But yeah, being able to take my pension early was really cool, really.
Yeah, a good. Well, you put 24, 25 years into it, so it's not like you didn't. It's not like you didn't work and put the effort in to get the reward out. So
Exactly. Yeah, no, I think I just wanted to do what made me happy rather than doing what everyone else wanted me to do. So I think I'm taking charge of my life, really.
Yeah, well, there's fantastic advice for anyone. That's I'm sure that's what we're all pursuing. However, we decide we want to get there, definitely. And neuro-linguistic programming, NLP. I'm sure lots of people have heard about that. But give us, as a master practitioner, give us your explanation of what that is and how you use it in your work to help people.
Yeah, really, NLP is all about the study of excellence. It's about modeling excellence. It's a little bit, it's sort of like an analogy of if you have a car that's not running well, and cars are quite modern these days, and you can't really get under the bonnet and do stuff yourself, but you have to take it to a garage, and maybe it's stuttering on the way, and they sort of plug it into some sort of machine and sort out all the bits that aren't working properly. And when you take it back, it's going really sort of zoomy and working really well. So it's basically the same, with the brain. So neuro stands for the nerves and the brain, and the nerves that connect all of our cells.
Yeah.
Linguistic is all about how we label things.
Yeah.
So it's really, we generalize. So, I've called this a pen. So we label it as a pen. Unfortunately, we also label other people's behavior, our own behavior, our illnesses and things, and that's not necessarily helpful. And then programming is how you sort of program all that together. So basically what happens is that we have a huge amount of information coming into our heads. So we have at least 2 million bits of information coming in per second.
Wow.
So things we sort of see, hear, feel, touch, taste and smell, and all that's raw data. So I don't know, I'm not in your room at the moment, but there must be lots of stuff around.
There is.
Certainly is here, which, and I can see out in the garden and I can hear the trains going by. But, basically we don't need all that information. We can only deal with 7 per second.
Right.
So we got to filter that down, and we use that, and we do that through our values, which we got by the age of 7. Our beliefs that we get from other people, things that have happened to us, and our memories and experiences of things that have happened that we hook the negatives and the positives onto.
Yeah.
And there's a few other things that we use to filter it, but then we end up with what we call our reality. So sort of like contained our reality, and it's different to everyone else's because everyone's got different values, different beliefs, had different experiences, made different decisions, and that reality then drives your emotional state, which then affects your physiology and all your cells, and all of that then leads to a behavior which gets us results. So we're sort of constantly running this program in our head, which means that our model of the world is different to other people's, that we've created our model of the world, and therefore we can create it in a different way by using NLP tools to actually make, to change the way our reality works for us, really.
Yeah, to create an operating system that's fit for purpose.
Yeah, and of course that fits with the doctor bit as well, the operating system.
Yes.
Always laugh about bit of brain surgery. But we don't know. I mean, most people don't know that they're running this sort of process, and they don't know that they can change it really quickly. So that it's just totally fascinating. It's I haven't been as fascinated by anything else in my life as this. Working out how people work. Do they want to change something? Putting using techniques like timeline therapy, which gets rid of all the major negative emotions in about 3 hours.
Yeah.
I mean, I just feel, totally passionate about it, and that it's it's the missing link that I didn't have when I was a GP. So the link that, what was missing was that I was sending people to counsellors and CBT and, giving them pills and medicines and sick notes. But this actually makes a difference, and that's why I'm passionate about it, really.
Yeah, and it's not just a sticking plaster. I mean, I don't know enough about the medical profession to really offer a opinion, but it's never stopped me before. You'll know that much about me, Bridget.
Yeah.
And a pill may be a good sticking plaster for a short-term fix to give some relief, but actually, if it's a problem that's related to the operating system, well, you need to change the system, not just put a quick fix or a sticking plaster over it.
Well, I think you need to get back to the root cause of what started the operating system working as it did.
Yes.
So, like in my case, I felt I couldn't stand up and say I did a good job. That goes back to the 7 and 11-year-old sort of.
Yeah.
And most people I work with have had experiences, either big ones or little ones. Doesn't really matter, in the sense that it's equally easy to take those out and reprogram, so that it's not in your head anymore. It's fascinating.
Yeah.
So you just don't, your thinking changes, you're still the same person and you still remember the things, but the emotion has actually just been completely removed from it. So you feel free, and you can get on and live your life. Most people that come for coaching with me can't wait to get out of the office and go, let me go, I want to run my business, I know what I need to do, I can do it, and which is fab to see, really.
Yeah, I'm sure that's one of the most rewarding things about it. If you're driven to make a difference, which I know you are, when you see that actually happening in front of your eyes, it must be the most valuable reward you could ever ask for. And I think some people dismiss things, don't they, without even knowing anything about them. And my opinion is that sometimes things like NLP can be dismissed by people. They're usually dismissed by people that don't have any of those issues or aren't prepared to confront any of those issues, because of the way the system has been built. But actually, to me, it makes perfect sense that the way you see the world is created by the influences and sensory experiences that you've had. And so, I'm sure there's lots of examples where you could say, twins, but, identically the same, separated at birth. One goes on to be, a evil genius, multi-billionaire living on his own private Thunderbird Island, and the other one who has got exactly the same DNA, pretty much, maybe doesn't achieve, maybe goes the complete other way.
Yes. I think there's a really fascinating school of science that's called epigenetics now. And that basically part of that is saying that your thoughts and feelings can switch on or off your DNA. Right. So even if I hadn't really thought about it in terms of identical twins, but if they're different, it's because they've got different thoughts and feelings, had different influences maybe, that then create different physiology, different behaviors. Interesting.
Yeah, I think it's fascinating, absolutely fascinating. And what are the, obviously without going into specifics of individuals, certainly not revealing anything, but what do you tend to find are the common challenges or blockers that people come up against?
So, I tend to find that people program things into their head, which means that they think they're not good enough to do something. That they're not worthy, that they don't deserve success, that they've got to take notice of what other people think, as in, what will they worry about what other people will think if they are successful. And they also think that maybe people like me shouldn't be doing things like this. So those are the sort of four big things. Things like the imposter syndrome, we hear a lot about that these days. It's really about not feeling good enough. So people have suddenly arrived in a position where they're successful, and they think, well, how did I get here? I'm not really that good, but everyone else thinks I am. So that's really interesting. And those sort of thoughts just pop into your head as chatter whenever you push yourself out of your comfort zone.
Yes.
They pop in, and your unconscious mind's sole purpose, well, not sole purpose, but biggest purpose, is to keep you safe.
Yes.
And every time you push yourself out of your comfort zone, if you've got some programming that might affect it, and you get this bit going, sort of, are you sure you want to do that? Last time you did that, this happened. What are people going to say? Is it all worth it? And that negative chatter, it can be really quite loud.
Yes, yeah, and I know from chatting with you many times before that the idea of chatter is something that you talk a lot about and help with, because I heard a great quote from a stage speaker once. He said, "We've all got that little voice in our head. It's talking to you now, and if you think you haven't got that voice in your head, it's the voice telling you that you think you haven't got it." And then everyone starts laughing, So we all talk to ourselves continually.
Yeah.
Even if just making a cup of tea. So imagine a more complex task. Well, of course, the chatter goes into overdrive.
Yeah.
And I know that what you help people with is to make sure that chatter is saying the right things a lot of the time, because it is only there to protect us, isn't it?
And I think if you get rid of the negatives, there's really nothing there.
Yeah.
To be honest, people don't have chatter, so they're just focused then on their goals. And I suppose it's probably some bit of positive chatter. Oh, I did really well. That's good. I'm on my way, sort of stuff. But it's not as prominent as the negative.
No. I've noticed, and I hate to put this image into people's minds, but my chatter is most active. Well, it's with me through the day, and I have got much better at improving the conversations I have with myself. But when I'm in the shower in the morning, my chatter is in overdrive if I let it, because I'm thinking about the day ahead, thinking, right, okay, so once you're out of the shower, let's start doing this. Oh, that's going to be hard. and then let's do that. Oh, you've got a lot on today, you know. And actually now I use that a lot more constructively to plan and say, you know, tell me when I've had experiences of doing those things well in the past, or
Yeah.
something I'm not sure about. I remind myself of all the things I've done before that I wasn't sure about that worked out fine. And it, you know, it's much more helpful,
Yes.
but the chatter's more positive now.
Good. Good.
You know,
You know, when I'm in the shower, I mean, we could turn this into a whole series of interviews about what you do in the shower, or maybe not. But you know, what I just tend to sort of notice sensations. I find myself sort of like with my hands like that, and I don't really have much going on. And I
yeah,
think a lot of that is about doing the planning, so you know what's going on, you're happy with it
yes.
before you even start to think about it, really.
Yes, yeah, yeah. So you know, I would, yeah, I think it's fascinating the whole NLP, the way people think, and I know that that's how you help. So they're typically the challenges that you help people overcome. And what about yourself, Bridget? I mean, what you've mentioned your values and the importance of values.
Yeah.
You know, what drives and motivates you? I mean, is there any sort of big business or personal goals that you're striving for at the moment?
I'm more or less 99% sure that I'm going to apply to set up a community interest company
Okay.
to help people with traumas that they've had in their life. So really people that I'm working with already, because, you know, whether you've had a piece of chalk thrown at you by a teacher and that's affected you for the rest of your life, or whether you've been in Afghanistan, you know, you still get programming from it. And I'd like to help people locally to get over that.
Wow.
And what I'd really like to do is to, because I'm a trainer, I'm a master trainer, I'm now training trainers in NLP. I'm also training people up to master practitioner level in NLP, and I'd like to help them to work within this community interest company, and so that you know, and we just deliver that from my company, and that's quite exciting for me, really. And
Ah,
I would like to do something different most years, and I think this is quite a big different. So
yes.
and I need some help to do that. So I'm looking for some administration support now, so that you know, I can grow the business and, you know, really make a difference to, you know, thousands instead of hundreds of people.
Yeah. No, that sounds fantastic, and you know, again, ticks your box of making a difference, doesn't it? A big
Yeah,
tick in the box.
it will have to be fun. That's
Yes.
for definite. Because if it's not fun, I'll probably stop.
Yes.
Um, and you know, it's got to be about how do I survive doing that? Because you know, if we do get funding coming in,
Mm.
and I'm not even sure how to get funding at the moment, but if we do get funding coming in, it's going to be quite busy.
Yeah.
And how do I keep my sense of peace and looking after myself in the midst of all of that?
Yes. There's a bit to think through, but all achievable, of course. And
Yeah.
it's really interesting working with you, Bridget, because I often notice when we're having a conversation that you'll come up with something, and then you'll do self coaching on yourself. Come up with something and you'll say,
Right.
"I'm not quite sure how I'm going to do that yet," and then you'll self coach yourself around it whilst the conversation's going on.
Yeah.
You know, evidence live that the system works, and I love it.
Yeah.
It's really cool. Is that something that's likely to be set up almost like a social enterprise, do you think? Or
Yes. Yeah. So it'd be not for profit. It's not going to be a charity. It's going to be a community interest company.
yes,
Um, so yeah, I think there's a lot of need out there, and I think that not many people are aware of how NLP can specifically help with removing trauma really, really quickly.
yes,
Um,
yeah, well,
and I just feel there's another gap. So the phrase that's coming up for me this sort of since lockdowns happened is the missing link. So
yes,
the missing link of helping people with NLP, the missing link also of helping people set up coaching businesses once they've trained with me, and now the missing link of there are people out there that need our help and
mm,
aren't getting it. So can I and in fact, I think I might write a book called The Missing Link.
You should. And actually that leads us very neatly. I know I haven't prepped you for the question, but I know you have written lots of content, including at least one of your books that I've read. So tell us a little bit. I mean, obviously we'll all be waiting for The Missing Link to come out now that you've said it publicly. Yeah. But tell us.
To hundreds of people.
Tell us about your tell us about your book.
So I wrote a book, actually it was 7 years ago, which was when I went back to have a look. I didn't realize it was that long. It's called Mindset for Business Success, and there's a bit of an introduction to NLP and my story, and then it's a workbook that you can work through to set your goals, find out who you are, what your values are, what your beliefs are, and become resilient, improve your communication. So there's about 10 chapters, and I've also made it into a course which goes by the same name, Mindset for Business Success. And that's just video of the book. But it sort of works on it's quite an interesting thing. It works on, what are your symptoms? Here's a prescription.
Yeah.
And are you feeling any better? Sort of, which I quite like.
Yeah, I liked it, and it's very, like you say, it's a series of obviously some story-based piece in there, but also a series of exercises that anyone could do, whether it was a 10-year-old or a 100-year-old. Anyone could get value out of that.
So I must get some more things on it's on Amazon, there's a Kindle as well. I need to get some more. In fact, Adam, perhaps you can go and put a review on for me. It's not something I usually ask, but
I'll have to check. I might have done it already actually, but I will double check. And also I'll make sure I include a link in the notes that I put together with this when it's put out. I think that's useful for people to be able to go and have a look at, and obviously if they want to, they can buy it. And hopefully my recommendation will be alongside it by the time they get there. So I wanted to just go back slightly. I made a little note here about something that you were saying. So around the thoughts people have and how that influences their lives. Now, I'm sure you will have read the famous Napoleon Hill Think and Grow Rich.
Yes.
The title in itself often puts people that have never heard of it before off for some reason, I've noticed. But a fascinating book that I have read a few times actually, and always found interesting. Does that? I know it's a slightly different thing, but does that idea of think and grow rich, does that tie in with the work of neuro-linguistic programming in some way, do you think, or is there any crossover there?
Well, I think our thoughts come from our filtering, and our thoughts are part of our reality. So that reality creates whatever you want it to create. So and I think Rich is a business book, really, isn't it, Mum? Rich is in terms of business success, and that's the area that I work in, but it equally applies to relationships, career, the whole of life success. And our thoughts create our behavior. Our thoughts create our feelings, which then also creates our behavior. And all we see in people is their behaviors. We don't know what filtering they've done and their results. And sometimes you look at people and you think, I wonder why. I wonder what's causing them to behave like that. And when you delve into it, they might not want to behave like that, but it's a programming thing. And B, they'd quite like to get rid of it or change it for different behaviors. And I think, a lot of, because I've run quite a lot of masterminds as well. So I think, the power of other people's views and it's like your sort of, you can either do a virtual sort of, I can't remember what the name is, but you can have people who are like yourself. What would Adam say if I've got that problem, or what would so-and-so say? Or you can do it face to face. And you know, everyone's got a different perspective, and we get stuck in our own model of the world, and we don't necessarily think about, is there anything else that we could think?
Yeah.
I think it's really useful for that. So.
Yes. Yeah. No, fascinating. And actually understanding, I think anyone that were going to go and read that book again or read it for the first time in the context of the conversation we've been having today, you know, your thoughts affect how you feel, your feelings affect how you behave, and your behaviors affect the actions you take, and the actions you take determine how you progress through life.
Yeah.
Very, very natural sequence of, and anyone hearing that little last statement probably couldn't fail to agree, even with external influences, because how you react to external factors is determined by the way you think about things. So
Yes.
I might even go back and read it myself with the context of the conversation.
You just made me think. I've got it down in my log cabin somewhere. So.
Yeah. And the other book that you recommended to me, now you'll have to tell me if I've got the title right. Is it The Big Leap?
Yeah.
Now, tell us a little bit about that, because that's a fantastic book as well, isn't it?
It is, and it's really easy to read, and it makes so much sense. So The Big Leap is about why don't we take that leap from whatever. He talks about 4 zones, so incompetence, competence, excellence, and genius, and to move between all the zones that you feel like you're in takes a little bit of a leap. Basically what he's saying is that we have these upper limiting problems, so ULPs, that are things like I'm not good enough, success is too hard, what are people going to say, and people like me don't do things like that. So those are his 4 main ULPs. Of course there's lots of others underneath them. So those things create us to behave in a certain way, which keeps us in the zone where we are. So, and we quite often create sort of illnesses, or we hide away, or we don't show up as ourselves. We create arguments for no reason. I don't know about you, but I can have a really good day. I'll be on a real high, and I'll come in and someone hasn't done the washing up, and I'll go, you haven't done the washing up, and before we know where we are, we're in a big sort of like fight about something little, and that's a symptom of an ULP. And you know, we've seen people, you know, Clinton, Boris Becker, you know, people at quite high profiles have done some really strange things, which you would consider as an ULP. So,
self-sabotage because of underlying belief.
So it's really about self-sabotage, the book.
What
you can do about it. And interestingly, I've just finished reading his another of his books, which is called Conscious Living. That's really interesting as well. It's but you know, the Big Leap is certainly something I discuss with clients and potential clients, and it's a very easy book to read.
I remember.
Not as good as mine, of course.
No, of course, no. Actually, I remember, and linking the 2 books together, you very kindly, after one of our first conversations and engagements, sent me a copy of your book and that book. And that triggered a lot of other things for me to think about. And obviously, since that was probably 2 years ago now, Bridget, since then we've chatted. We've probably chatted for a full day if you put all the time that we spent talking to one, maybe even more. So very, very highly recommended those. So that's great. So just coming back slightly then to the idea of business, and I'm hopeful that lots of people interested in starting up or doing something different might listen or watch these back. So what have been the biggest lessons for you, would you say, in terms of starting and running your own business that you've noticed?
I think getting your head in the right place is the biggest business tool that you can have, because when you're starting out in business, it's all quite rosy. And then I still remember sitting down in the cabin trying to do a website and, you know, business cards, work out what I was going to say in a networking meeting, and wondering if it was all worth it. So get your head in the right place to start with.
Yes.
Then surround yourself with people that support your journey,
Yeah.
and get rid of any limiting stuff that you're thinking
Mm-hmm.
that's going to stop you, and then take that massive and consistent action. So I always say that business success is about total belief, that's in yourself and what you're doing, total clarity about where you're going,
Yeah.
and who you are and how you fit with your business,
Yeah.
and then that massive and consistent action. But most people that I meet in business are sort of like, a little bit down on one or two of those, and it's just having that effect which makes, causes that negative chatter and stops you from pushing where you need to push.
Yes.
It's
Yeah.
quite interesting. I had was in a networking event a couple of days ago. I put a little blog about this in my Facebook group. Someone said to me, I said, well, I wasn't 100% sure why I run my business, and I think, and the other person said, well, it's like pushing a boulder up a hill. You've just got to push that boulder up the hill. And I thought, no, that doesn't sound right to me. It may be for a lot of people, but I feel like I'm being pulled by something.
Yeah.
So I think the why you're doing it and who you are can pull you to do whatever you need to do in your business. Definitely. And it only becomes a boulder when you've got those limitations and your values aren't aligned with your business.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, I asked me now, but
no,
advice, yeah.
I think spot on. I would agree with that definitely, and it's the idea of pushing a boulder up the hill is very unappealing, isn't it? As well, you're actually framing it all wrong for yourself.
Yeah.
Again, this is probably not great, but I would maybe reframe that to say it's almost like you're trying to get the boulder moving from the top of the hill, and it will gather momentum, and then you've almost got to chase it back down again. It certainly sounds a little bit easier, but
I just feel like there's something that I can't see over the top of the hill that's pulling me up.
Yes, and that's the purpose, of course, isn't it? The purpose and the having a better self-awareness of what is important will continually drive someone, I'm sure, and get those things out of alignment, and there can be a problem. Interesting, the beginning of what you were saying as well around, I bet if I spoke to 10 different people wanting to start up their own business, and I said, what's the first thing you think you need to do? 9 of them would say, I've got to get my brand and my logo and my business card sorted.
Yeah.
And whilst those things are fun because it makes the whole thing feel a bit more real, actually, the one person that said, I need to get my head in the right space and decide exactly what I want to do and why that's important to me, that person is far more likely to go on to be successful, because they'll have the energy, enthusiasm, passion, and understanding to drive it through. They'll be the ones being pulled up the hill, regardless of how good the logo, branding, font, color palette, and anything else looks. There's always a balance, but that's certainly what I have found. So that
I think business is about being visible as well, and if you don't want to be visible because you've got some stuff sitting in your head, then you're not going to be visible, so people aren't going to know you're there and therefore won't use you as a business.
Yes,
so that's a mindset thing as well, really. And I guess a lot of people might come out of corporates and think, oh, it's a great idea to start up a business, and they think that the hours are going to be easier and they'll have more control of their time, and it doesn't always necessarily work out like that. And I think sometimes it takes a little bit for people to realize they need to work on their mindset, so they're really focused, really determined, and then they hit the Alps or the get the symptoms from the not pushing through the zones. And I mean, I think the other thing that Gay Hendricks talks about is, if you want to be in your zone of genius, then you might be in the zone of excellence at the moment, where we've got cars, we can go on holiday in in better times. Everyone knows what we're doing and what we're about, and then it just gets a bit on the boring side.
Yeah.
And I think to get really into your zone of genius, where you're really doing really what you want to do and whatever, is a big leap, and need some help sometimes to do that.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Again, highlighting the importance of getting the mindset right and getting the support network right.
Yeah.
Those two things will be massive influences on how you do.
Yeah.
Certain of that. So, any other sort of books or business inspiration that you might suggest or have for people, Bridget?
I think I quite like that the 5-second rule, but I didn't read the whole book. I sort of got it straight away. So
That Mel Robbins, that one.
Yeah, sort of 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Just do it or don't do it. I'm trying to think I'm not very good at remembering names of books. There's one. There's one which is about. It starts off with frogs sort of leaping into a pail of milk.
Oh yeah.
And I can't remember what it's called. It might come to me in a minute. So they paddle away and think I'm going to drown and it's awful and I won't be able to have my froggy family, and so they keep paddling away, and one of them says, do you know what, I can't do this anymore, and he gives up, and he drowns, and the other one just sort of carries on because he really wants to live his life to the full as a frog.
Yeah.
Eventually what he's done is he turns it into butter and then he can leap out.
Oh, okay.
So, I can't remember what it's called, but the concept is that if you just keep doing the little things, then the big things happen.
Yes. Well, look, we should run a little competition, Bridget. Anyone that can give us the name of that book, you'll probably come up with it yourself, but don't reveal it now. Anyone that can tell us the name of that book, both you and I will send them a book of our own that they can read. All they've got to do is be the first one to comment. And
I know what it's called. I've remembered now, but I won't.
Well, you can't reveal it now.
No.
Maybe if people sign up to your weekly newsletter or tips, and request it, you'll send them the answer. And I would recommend they do that. I know I'm plugging you there, but you're very generous with the content that you create and the nice little nudging thoughts that you share regularly with people through your Facebook group or the emails that you send out. Because, for people watching, Bridget records a lot of video that she sends. So give us and I'll put it in the notes, but give us your email address that people might be able to find you and sign up to receive that advice.
So the web address is www.drbridget, DRBRIDGETNLP.com.
Great.
And I've got a Facebook group called One Step Closer, which is about taking those steps towards your business success from a mindset perspective.
Yes, so people can find you in either of those places. And I know your website will have a contact form on it, and the Facebook group will come up when they write One Step Closer in. And I'm a member of that group, and I'd highly recommend anyone that's interested in developing, learning, improving, getting advice and help. You've got a great community there, haven't you, of people that not just you, but the community themselves will jump to the aid as required, which is
definitely.
Yes, perfect. So I think coming towards the close, and I asked this question of all my great friends that I speak to on this on these interview series, and it's my time machine question. And I always frame it. I hopefully always frame it right by saying, I'm not looking for a sliding door moment that means you do something age 7 and your whole life is completely different now. I mean, it can be that if you want it to be. My time machine question is, if you could go back in time, where would you go and what would you tell yourself or change, or what moment would you like to repeat or watch again? So it's quite broad.
Yes. Well, I was having a think about this earlier, and an event popped into my head, which is nothing to do with anything that we've talked about really. And it was simply that I was a captain of hockey and netball team when I was, in the sixth form. But I don't think I really made the most of that. I wasn't sure why I was there and why I'd been chosen, and maybe didn't interact with the team quite as much as I could. And I think one of the things I've learned is to be more of a leader, because I tend to be a team player as well.
Yeah.
So and isn't it interesting how when you get these questions, something that I hadn't thought about for 30 years, 40 years, just popped in, and thought, well, maybe I need to go back and have a look at that, and or just take some learnings from that, because it's one of those ups, isn't it? What are people going to think when you really push yourself out there and you be who you really want to be and be a leader and things? And was that the time that, back in that hockey time, where I actually could have done it earlier? Interestingly.
Yeah, well, it's interesting that your mind went to that place, isn't it?
Interesting, yeah. How about you?
Well, there you go. You've dropped one on me there, haven't you? I think, Bridget, and I always thank you for asking me. I will always frame, if I answer this question, with this idea that I don't want to change anything about my life right now. Anything that I want can come beyond this point, because I wouldn't sacrifice any of the relationships I've got, so I wouldn't want the sliding door moment. I sometimes think back to my university days, which were great fun, but at one point in my university, I had this idea that I wanted to change course quite early on. And I rang up the other campus that I needed to speak to, and they said, "Oh, it's just too late. You've missed the boat on that one." And I wish to this day I hadn't accepted that as an answer. And I'd realised you can always change anything you want if you go to the right person or you're persistent enough. Don't take no for an answer is often the route to the top of the mountain.
Yes.
Find a different way around it, or I say, okay, well, I can't do it now, but I'll do it. I'll start again next year. Or
so, what would you have been if you?
Well, it would have been a media and communications course of some description, and it probably would have led me towards a career in media, broadcasting, communications, writing, content, editing, something like that. And I'm not regretful about it particularly, because life goes on. But thanks for asking the question. And it's funny, I was only thinking about how I would answer the question this morning. So and here we are now doing interviews and creating content. So
well, exactly, I was going to say you've done it, haven't you?
Funny how life turns out, of course.
Yeah.
But there's learning in that, isn't there? Even today, don't take no for an answer. If you want something, don't let anyone telling you it can't be done be the reason why you don't achieve it.
And the other thing about no is to say no to things that don't keep you on your track.
Yes, you can use it as a powerful tool in your armory, can't you?
Yeah.
Rather than just saying yes to everything all the time. So, no, really, really useful. And in closing then, is there anything that I haven't asked you that you wished I had, or anything that you want to tell people?
No. So I guess we've talked a lot about the coaching. I'm pretty passionate about giving people the skills to do the same as well. So my NLP course is right up to training level now, is fun and what's it called? Mind blowing, perhaps not. I always have a picture when I say that of your brain sort of exploding. It's probably not the right word, but fascinating how the mind and the body all link together, and how you can change things really quickly, and teaching other people to do that for the people that they work with is something I'm quite passionate about.
Yes. Well, if anyone wants to learn and uncover more about that, definitely the thing to do is go to your website or Facebook page. I'll put the links in the notes. Yeah, and you know, in closing from me, I would just like to say definitely thanks for joining me for the
Been a
best part of an
pleasure.
hour now. It's been really great chatting with you.
Yeah.
It's come across very clearly here, but to put my personal seal on top of it, you know, I know you to be kind, generous with your time, fun-loving. We've had some giggles along the way, haven't we?
Yeah.
Uh, you know, you're an expert in your craft, and have helped me unlock some things that I didn't even realize were obstacles. So you know, thanks for sharing and taking the time with us.
Nice.
And I would highly recommend people go and look you up and make contact. If they give us the name of that book, of course, they might get a little prize in the post.
Yes.
Yeah. Well,
I'm
look,
going to go back and read it again because it's brilliant.
have
Yeah.
a wonderful return to freedom as lockdown now comes to a close. And
Yes.
I know that you and I will stay in touch and keep the conversation going. So thank you very much, Bridget.
That's okay. Lovely. Thank you. I enjoyed it.
See you soon.
Bye.